Thanks very much, Ian. Evening, everybody. Really fantastic turnout for this session. So great that people have taken their time on a Monday night to join us. Thank you so much for that. We are delighted to be able to talk about the new 17-year-olds playing adult rugby process that's in GMS for this season this evening. But what we wanted to do to start with is give you a bit of information, some reminders and bits and bobs around why we're here. Before that, a couple of other introductions. And myself. So I'm Mark Saltmarsh, player pipeline manager at the RFU. I recognise a number of the names on the list, but not all of them. But it's good to see you all. I'd also like to introduce Matt Bryan. Matt, give us a wave, Matt. Matt's our data manager and has been really key, along with Ian, to setting this system up on GMS. So Matt will be the one who'll guide us through the system and talk you through that in a second. And we've also got Viv Rimmer, who's our head of safeguarding as well. There's Viv, and because a number of you are safeguarding officers, and there's clearly a big safeguarding element to the 17-year-olds playing adult rugby, we wanted to make sure we could answer any specific questions that might be in there around safeguarding as well. So Viv will be keeping an eye on that Q&A function, as Ian said. So please do put your messages in there if you would like to ask anything in terms of those questions. Right, so Matt, if we can move on to the first slide. So what we wanted to do this evening is give you, hopefully this is what we want you to go away with, is an understanding of the new GMS process for our clubs to follow. And that's the club process, what the constituent body, your county approvers do, a little bit around that. And also, of course, when you apply for individual players, the process that you put them through now as well. And all that, as we say, has now moved from the old smart sheets into GMS. So we wanted to give you a really good walkthrough of that. We'll also have an opportunity to ask questions. That should say in the Q&A function, as Ian said, rather than the chat function. So please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions as we go through. So first thing I wanted to do was just give you a little bit of some reminders, first of all. If we go to the next slide, thanks, Matt. And just specifically around 17s playing adult rugby. But before that, just a reminder about playing out of age grade and what it's for and why. Our priority always, of course, and many of you are involved in age grade rugby, is for players to play in their age group, with their peers, with their friends, with those that support them most closely in their rugby lives, and obviously outside their rugby lives as well. Those connections that they have there, they're the best way to keep players together, keep them safeguarded, keep them safe, engaged, and obviously are their best sort of personal and emotional development opportunities as well, with others of their age. But we do, in our regulations, provide an opportunity and an exception to play out of age grade, whether that's playing up, playing down, combining age groups, or, as we're going to talk about tonight, 17-year-olds playing adult rugby. Clearly, there's a risk in that for many different reasons. Some of the benefits we've talked about of playing in age grade are things that change when you play out of age grade, aren't they? So we need to consider any playing out of age grade really carefully. Our regulations, those exist to ensure that we consider that risk, that we think carefully before agreeing to have an application to play someone out of age grade, that we've thought really carefully about that, because it is something that's different. And particularly for playing adult rugby, we are talking about children, because they're 17 years old, so they are still classed as children, and they're being put into an adult environment with adults playing contact rugby against them. And clearly that needs to be thought through in real detail. So the circumstances, the conditions, the assessment and the approvals all need to be in place before a player can do that. And again, just to reiterate, of course, player safety, their welfare is absolutely the major consideration. And that's for the player themselves, for those that they're joining to play with, for those they might play against, for those they might leave as well. What's the impact on them? So some real thought needs to go into these processes. And as I say, for 17s playing adult rugby, there is that whole piece around playing in an adult environment as a child as well. So just a quick reminder of the regulations. So there's two parts to the regulation for 17s playing adult rugby. The first one is the club approval, and a club must have approval, everything showing that everything in the club is in place, the right people, the right facilities, the right management of the rugby environment and the non-rugby environment to make sure there's no risk to that 17-year-old or as little risk as possible to that 17-year-old playing and training with adults. So that's part one. And once a club has that approval, we go to part two, which is they can then make individual applications for individual players if it's right for that player, bearing in mind everything I've just talked about to play adult rugby, they're able then to make that application. And Matt will talk through how the system works to ensure that flow happens as well. And it's vital, of course, in that application for the individual to provide really good detail to demonstrate that the club takes that risk really seriously, that there's been a really rigorous assessment, and that there's a good process within the club and a good plan of how they'll make sure that that young player really benefits from playing adult rugby rather than playing with their own peers in their own age group. So really important that you think about the detail that you need to have in there. And just some examples we've seen in the past, really obvious, just copy and pasting. We've seen a lack of club involvement in the application, sometimes a lack of parents even knowing this is happening. Clearly, that has to be part of it, and lack of a plan about what happens to the players, either in the adult section or the age grade section as well. Just a reminder to you, really think about those things and make sure they are a key part of what you put into the application. So just emphasising again, there's a real expectation, and those who approve your applications or decline them, have that expectation. And what we've introduced this year is giving them time to do that. You'll have seen some of the changes to the regulations. It could take now in regulation, up to 10 days for that to happen. So, making a decision on a Friday night that you want a 17-year-old to play with adults the day after is very unlikely to happen. That would be a massively quick turnaround, remembering that our county's volunteers are in the same situation that our club volunteers are, where they're doing this as part of their volunteer work. So really thinking about it and doing it early is important. Just one other reminder that if we're talking about an academy player or a PDG player, player development group player in the girls' game as well, that's a separate form, and those are available on the page on Regulation 15. And all the other Regulation 15 approval processes are still in the Smartsheet system, and those links are on Regulation 15 as well. But of course, tonight we're focusing on 17-year-olds playing adult rugby, the new GMS system, and Matt is going to walk us through that in a second, having looked at some of the benefits, etc. So I will hand over to you, Matt. Keep those questions coming in the Q&A, and we will look to answer them as we go along. Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. And just to prove that we're definitely live here, if you saw me frantically rummaging around the second we went live, that was the very second I decided to spill half a can of Pepsi on my desk. So there you go. Live TV blows up in your face, as they say. Another housekeeping, if you see me looking around like I'm looking as if I'm watching a game of tennis, I've got 3 screens here with different things on. So definitely paying attention. I'm also trying to keep a look at the questions that are coming in as well. So echoing Mark's comments there, great to be on with you this evening. So let's get into the technical part of the process then, around 17-year-olds playing adult rugby. So as Mark's already highlighted, this isn't a change in the regulation, it's more a change in how it's applied. So it's now, as Mark has said and explained, being brought into GMS, whereas in the past, the large proportion of it was in the Smartsheet offline process. What you're going to see on a number of successive slides are, pleased to say, the videos, you'll recognize Ian's voice on them. You might be familiar with Ian, who does all of our really good digital content when it comes to self-help guides and what have you. So all of the videos that you see in this webinar tonight, as well as the webinar being recorded, are already available to you on Community Rugby Help and on our Community Rugby digital YouTube channel. And as we go along, and indeed as we get into the presentation, we'll reference that further and put some links into the chat for you as well. So let's get underway, and I will pause after kind of each step, and we'll check back in with what the questions are as Ian and Michael said, an unbelievable number of people attending tonight. Thank you all so much for coming on. If we don't get through all of the questions, we'll try and get through as many of them as we possibly can. And those that we need to follow up with, as Marcus said, we will do. So first of all, looking at the rationale and the benefits that we hope people will start to see as a result of the change. So as we've mentioned already, it was an offline process. What that was meaning was that a lot of the information that was needed to go into the smart sheet was needed. Smart sheet was needing to be found by the person who was inputting the information. They would need to go and find DBS numbers, DBS valid to dates, or expiry dates. They would need to find coaches' details and even players' details, of course. All of the information which is pre-populated in GMS now pulls into the form for you. So as a volunteer, we're really keen on what we do and what we call trying to reduce the number of clicks as much as we possibly can. So hopefully you'll recognize those who have been through the process, that when we go through the videos, you'll recognize that some of the information that you had to put in previously, auto input previously, you'll now see is done for you because it pulls it from the back end of GMS. So there's definitely some benefits there. Having it all in the same place means that we should experience minimal, if any, issues with kind of player eligibility. So having the whole end-to-end process in GMS means that no club can be getting individual players applied for in GMS until the club's been signed off. No player can be registered until that player's been signed off, and no player can be registered until that player's been signed off. And then finally, no player can be getting put into a match card until all of those previous steps in order have been taken as well, which gives us some really good benefits there in terms of safeguarding the player, which is why we have spent a lot of time on this process. Yes, to reduce the volunteer admin, but our main kind of outcome here, as I'm sure it is on everybody on the call, is to think about the welfare of that player and those that player is playing with and around as well. And the system now, you'll hopefully see, is pretty much bookended and then again tightens those safeguarding protocols. You will see, as I've said already, the streamlining. Hopefully, those that have been through the process of smart sheets, you'll see that there's some streamlining to be gained from going into the GMS process. So let's just get into it. So the first one we're going to have a look at is the club application. So this is a club, and what I will need to do is I'll just, it doesn't look like just bear with me, the sound is shared. So just bear with me 1 second while I redo that. So the first one we're going to have a look at here will be how the club applies to become a club that is therefore signed off and able to be able to assess 17-year-olds to be playing adult rugby. And I will stop the videos as we go forward in certain places just to highlight them. Ian, I can see you. So as soon as the sound comes on, if you can let me know if you can hear it, that would be useful. Okay.
Go to the organisation profile. Select all.
I've lost
Organisation information from the menu on the left-hand side. Go to the right-hand side of the page and click Play Up to Adult. Read the important information, clicking on the relevant hyperlinks if further information is required. The club safeguarding information is pre-populated. If you do not see a date in here, it will not stop you from submitting the form. Fill in the open fields. Search for key people at your club. Please note you'll be only able to search for people with a valid DBS. If you need more than 2 people, you can add further individuals. Just select the Add button in the right-hand part of that section. Fill in the information on essential data from the drop-down menus. The declaration information auto-populates. Then click Submit. This will then be submitted to your club safeguarding officer for review. The status on the organisation information page will show under the player registration box.
Okay, so I'm going to take you through that again. So that was the first, that was a premiere, if you like. What I'll do is I'll stop at certain points now to highlight certain parts which we think will be of most pertinence to those who are on this evening. So you're in GMS, so you've logged in. You are going to go into the organization profile part of GMS. So this kind of 9 dots top left gets called a few things, gets called a 9-9, gets called a waffle, or just 9 dots. You would go into that part as
the
Ian has mentioned in the video.
organization profile.
You go into the organization profile module within GMS and you select organization information. It's really important that you do those steps first, obviously.
Select organization information from the menu on the left-hand side.
And then what you'll see there, some of you may be familiar with that widget or that tile that we see there called player registration. That was introduced previously, but that was a manual kind of tick box by the CBs, the CB approval rules that went in to do that. That is now all automatically linked up with this process and only gets ticked once the approval of the form from the club is given. You'll see that the button there, top right, is play up to adult.
Go to the right-hand side of the page and click play up to adult.
Sorry, it's gone back. I'm sorry, I do apologize. Bear with me.
Profile from the menu on the left-hand side. Go to the right-hand side of the page and click play up to adult.
And then what you see and pop up there to the right-hand side is obviously the application form. And again, those who are familiar with the Smartsheets process previously, it's essentially what we call a lift and shift. We've taken the information from the Smartsheets, including the guidance and all the hyperlinks, and have put it into that form on the right-hand side there. And then you'll see the subparts of the form that Ian talks us through now.
Read the important information, clicking on the relevant hyperlinks if further information is required. The club safeguarding information is pre-populated. If you do not see a date in here, it will not stop you from submitting the form.
And that's something really important to have a look at. So you'll see there that the safeguarding officer, which is a golden rule, has been pulled through. So you don't have to type the name of that person. And we've also pulled through the GMS ID there for you. The safeguarding officer in touch. So if, in this case, Sammy had completed that course, that date would pull through. And we purposely left that blank on the self-help video because we knew that people might look at that and think, I can't submit the form, but you can. So if a date is in there, then that obviously means that safeguarding officer has already undertaken the course. If it's not in there, it does not stop you from submitting the form. That will be something that your local CB approver will be aware of. They may have some questions for you or some follow-up conversations with you about when that safeguarding officer is going to complete that course, but it won't stop you submitting the form or going further into the process.
Fill in the open fields. Search for key people at your club. Please note you'll be only able to search for people with a valid DBS.
And this, we hope, is also another time saver. So as Ian says there, you will only be able to return people into that box. So these are the key people that need to have a valid DBS as a part of this application. You will only be able to find in these boxes when you search for them people who meet that criteria. So they can be any role. Really important to say that. We mentioned here that the roles that typically are key people who need a valid DBS are some of the roles that we mentioned there. They don't have to be those roles, but those are typically the roles that fulfill that role or fulfill the requirement as key people. But you will only be able to return people in here if they've got a valid DBS. They don't have to have the role of coach, captain, or team manager in GMS in this part, but they will have to have a valid DBS and therefore all the other information which comes along with that. If they don't have a valid DBS and you know that they're in GMS in your club and they're not being returned on the search, then that's the reason why. It's because they'll be in your GMS potentially, but they won't have a valid DBS.
If you need more than 2 people, you can add further individuals.
And then just to point this one out there, you hopefully you saw there that I'll just rewind it because it's a good one to have a look at. You'll see that there's no add plus sign there. Again, trying to keep as much information off the form as possible to try and slim it down as much as what we possibly can. But the system will intuitively recognize that once you start to fill in the second key person,
if you need more than 2 people,
you will see that add button appear.
You can add further individuals.
And if you have 3, 4, 5, 6, or however many people that you want to put down as key people within your club, you just click add there and it will successively add the search boxes for you.
select the Add button in the right-hand part of that section. Fill in the information on essential data from the drop-down menus.
And then just to pause there, you will hopefully would have seen in the drop down that you, as a club, as an organization, you can apply for men's on its own, women's on its own, or you can apply for both at the same time.
The declaration information auto-populates. Then click Submit. This will then be submitted to your club safeguarding officer for review. The status on the organisation information page will show under the player registration box.
There we go. That is the process for the club completing the form, or the applicant from the club completing the form. I'll just go on to the next couple, and then Ian, if there are some questions which come up on key themes, I'll just go on to the next one, and then we can maybe pause and answer some of them live. So the applicant of the club has completed the form. The next part that this now goes to is the safeguarding officer for approval. So it goes to the club safeguarding officer. This is the process that they would need to go through to progress that application towards the CB. Again, I'll play the whole video and then come back and focus on a few key points.
Once the club has applied to be able to play a 17-year-old into adult rugby as a club, you'll be sent an email and will have a notification on your personal dashboard to review. Review the information and select Approve or Reject with the reason. Within the organisation information page, the status will now change. The status will say Submitted by Club Safeguarding Officer.
Okay, so we'll just revisit that again.
Once the club has applied to be able to play a 17-year-old into adult rugby as a club, you'll be sent an email and will have a notification on your personal dashboard to review.
So that's the club safeguarding officer who's logged into GMS there. This is what they would see on their own personal dashboard. They've got a notification banner there, which has what we call a drill through on it. Click onto that and it takes them to the application to review and then submit if they wish to. And as Ian mentioned, they will also get a notification email as well to say that banner is awaiting them in their GMS dashboard.
Review the information and select Approve or Reject with the reason.
So as you can see, all of the information which was filled in and completed in the previous steps is there. This is just for the club safeguarding officer to review and then, approve, which will then forward that onto the CB, or reject if they want to send it back to the applicant.
Within the organisation information page, the status will now change. The status will say Submitted by Club Safeguarding Officer.
And you saw the status change there, and just to call out, and again, this is covered in the guides on the community rugby health. Should the safeguarding officer reject that from their own club applicant, then they must put in a rejection note as to the reasons why, otherwise that won't go through. And then I'll just highlight back there again. You can see the widget which we looked at a couple of moments ago. The status of that has now changed to submitted by club safeguarding officer, just for male on this one, because that was the only one we did. I'll just move on, Ian, and do what I'm going to show you next is actually is what some of you on the call, you may be what we call CB approvers. So approver at CB is someone who has the roles and permissions and expertise and experience to process these applications. The next video I'm going to show you is what they go through, which we think is useful for you to see as clubs, and we appreciate that there might be the odd CB approver on the call also. And then we'll take a pause and see what kind of common themes we're getting coming through the questions.
An individual will need the role of approver and a permission level of 2 and above to be able to review a club's application. You would have received an email notifying you of the Play Up to Adult approval. Log into your account and a notification will be on your personal dashboard. Select this and review the application. and either approve or reject the application. Once the club has applied and been approved by the CB, the status in the organisation information under player registration for the club will be updated.
So that's probably the most important part of that little section for clubs that are on the call, is that you will see the status change. So remember, we're an organisation profile, organisation information, and you'll see the status of your approval, providing the CB has approved that. You will see this the status change from club submitted by safeguarding officer to club approval, player approves. So as a club, that club is now approved by the CB to then assess 17-year-olds potentially to be playing senior rugby. Take a pause there, Ian, just to see if there's anything common coming through.
Yeah, just a common theme around who can initiate the club application. Some people just wanting to understand that a bit more, and suggesting that, wouldn't it be just the safeguarding officer, but actually it's wider than that can do that, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's any role in level 3 permissions, Ian, as you know. So it's as long as you've got a role at your club and your club has provided you or anyone else within the club with level 3 permissions, then you will be able to complete that form on behalf of that club.
Excellent. And just to answer the follow-on question from that, I've seen a couple of times, is you wouldn't be able to bypass, if a club safeguarding officer initiated the process, it wouldn't bypass that club safeguarding officer review. So it would stay the same process. Another one, Matt, just is this or Mark, is this on have to be done on an annual basis?
I'll jump in on that one, Ian, because I think there were some questions around a few of the details around the regulation, weren't there? So the first one is, so a 17-year-old who reaches their 17th birthday can go through this process. So they must be 17 years old to play adult rugby. That approval in regulation goes to their 18th birthday. So even that is, if that's the season after, it goes to their 18th birthday. Now, someone has actually asked this question. We're looking at the moment at those that were approved through the smart sheet process as 17-year-olds. There are still some of those players who will keep that approval for this year, but of course they're not in the GMS system. So we're looking, and we'll have a way ahead on that in the next couple of days. We're looking at how we can help you to do that, but they are going to need to be put into the GMS system, because of course then all those benefits Matt talked about being within the system, in the match card system, all the safeguards being in place, all of that is within GMS. So we're looking at a way that we can do that. So reapplication year on year, just for this year, will be a challenge because we're moving from Smartsheet to GMS. Going forwards, it'll be fine because everything's within GMS, but we'll come back to everyone in the next couple of days on that one. And then the final one on this, Ian, was just, I saw there was a question about under 19s. So under 19s are adults. They count as adult players. So if you have an under 18 group with 17-year-olds in that group, who you want to play with under 19s, that is playing with adults. So they have to go through the approval process, just to confirm that. So under 19s are adult players. So any 17-year-old needs to have been approved, as well as the club, obviously, the first part of Matt's description as well. Hopefully that answers a few of the regulation ones, Ian, just confirms things.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, happy to move on there, Matt.
Oh, good. I'll make sure I share the sound this time. Thanks for that. Do you keep the questions coming in? You can see a lot coming through, and we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. So the next part of the process we're going to have a look at is the individual. So what we were looking at there, just to re-clarify, was the club as an organisation, essentially applying to their CB for approval to then be able to potentially look at and assess 17-year-olds to be playing senior rugby or adult rugby. So what we're going to have a look at now is the individual player application side of things. And again, we'll go through the video and then I'll rewind and then stop at various breakpoints.
Once a club has applied to play 17-year-olds into adult rugby and been approved by the constituent body, go to Organisation Profile, select Organisation Information from the left-hand menu, and you will see that the status has changed under the Player Registration section to Approved to Play Adult, Club Approval Granted, Player Approved. An individual with an adult male or female registrar role or age grade registrar role with a level 3 permission level will go to the player's account via Player Management. On the menu, select Players, search for the individual that you need, and click on the ID number. From here, you can request the ability to register as an adult. Select this. This pulls out the menu, read the important information, and fill out the relevant details on the form. Include the start date, and all relevant information. Include the coach endorsement. The parent guardian information is pre-populated, as is the declaration information. You can either save for later or submit.
Okay, let's go back and have a look at certain parts of that form again.
Once a club has applied to play 17-year-olds into adult rugby and been approved by the constituent body, go to Organisation Profile, select Organisation Information from the left-hand menu, and you will see that the status has changed under the Player Registration section to Approved to Play Adult, Club Approval Granted, Player Approved. An individual with an adult male or female registrar role or age grade registrar role with a level 3 permission level will go to the player's account via Player Management. On the menu, select Players, search for the individual that you need, and click on the ID number.
One thing to call out here straight away is that many of you on the call will probably recognize that adult player registration changed the approach a few years ago from it being a club-led process to a player-led process. But in all cases of 17-year-olds being registered, prior to these steps that we're showing you here being completed, of course, the registration is only carried out by the club as well. So the club has to do this part, which is the individual assessment form for each of the players. But then you'll see later on that even though that adult player registration is almost entirely player-led these days, it's still the club that would register that player on their behalf.
From here, you can request the ability to register as an adult. Select this. This pulls out the menu, read the important information, and fill out the relevant details on the form.
Again, this is the information that's been lifted from the Smartsheet process for those that are familiar with it. And one of the things you're about to have a look at here, excuse me, is you can see all of the information has also come out from GMS. So you can already see the age of the player, their date of birth. Everywhere, basically, you see a grey blocked off box where you can't edit, put the information into, is that's already being pre-populated from the person's account or the applicant's account on the form. You'll see here, and again, for those of you who are a bit more familiar with age grade registration and some of the changes we've made into that this summer, the school or college attended is a bit more prominent on the player registration form now. And if that's been completed already on the player's registration form, then that will also pre-populate on here as well. If it isn't, then you'll see, again, aligned with what's on the age grade player registration form, you'll see what we call a geo-based search function. So dependent upon the postcode of whoever's account that we're in, it will return the school name, the nearest ones to that. So for example, if you're going to, an easy kind of example to make of that is, if we put in St Mary's and St Joseph's and the like, we'll get thousands return across the country. It will return them in order, which is the most closest to the postcode of the account holder within GMS.
Include the start date.
I'm just going to skip back a little bit there. So again, a lot of this will be pre-populated, but there are some things which GMS is never going to be intuitive enough to pull out, such as experience of playing rugby. What it will do is, I'll just go back a little bit more. You will be able to select from here the team that the player is most likely to play for. So we're on a test account here, obviously a test club. So we've gone for the first 15 men for Invincibles because we're working with a male player. If that team is not listed there, so let's say, for example, you know that they're going to be playing for a women's second team, third team, or whatever it is, should that team not appear, then you will need to create that team within the team management function within GMS. And again, all of the information, which we'll put links to on later on when we get to that point, you'll be able to find guidance on Community Rugby Help to be able to do that.
Include the start date. All relevant information. Include the coach endorsement.
And again, this will only return people within the search field that has the role of coach. They do not necessarily have to have a level 2 award. That is a recommended part of this process, but they will need to have the role of coach. So if, for example, you think, well, I know such and such is a coach of this team, and she or he is not appearing, then you would need to go back into that person's account within GMS and add the role of coach. And again, adding roles in GMS is one of the many things on the Community Rugby Help portal.
The parent garden information is pre-populated, as is the declaration information. You can either save for later or submit.
Yeah, because we recognise that the number of form fields on this, because this is some really detailed information, I'm sure everybody wants to get right on our players. There is the ability to save for later there. So don't worry, you don't need to get to the end of the form and think, I haven't got this one bit, I'm going to have to start all again. You will be able to save that for later. And then, or you can submit at the same time as well, if you get all the information towards the end of the form. So that is the individual player form. As with the club application, that will then go to the club safeguarding officer for review. So that's what we'll go through now.
The player application will be reviewed by the club safeguarding officer. Ensure you are on your personal dashboard where you will see a notification, play up to adult individual approval. Select this. Read the important information. Click into the relevant details. And click approve or reject. An individual with the role of approver at CB will now be prompted to approve.
Just go back and revisit a couple of things on there, not too many.
The player application will be reviewed by the club safeguarding officer. Ensure you are on your personal dashboard where you will see a notification.
And that's exactly as it was for the club application. You will get an email as club safeguarding officer, and you'll also get the notification in your personal dashboard, as Ian says, which is, we'll have a drill through on it, and that'll take you to the form popping out.
Play up to adult individual approval. Select this. Read the important information. Click into the relevant details. click approve or reject. An individual with the role of approver at CB will now be prompted to approve.
And then again, recognising that if the club safeguard officer did want to reject that for any reason, then they would need to put in a rejection note at the bottom. I'll quickly move on to the CB approver, and then we'll have another pause to try and get on to the questions. So this last one, again, there may be a few CB approvers on the call, but it's just to show everybody within the club game the process that the CBs would go through once that individual player form has been submitted by their club safeguarding officer.
To review a playing up to adult individual approval, you will need the role of approver and a permission level of 2 or above. You'll receive an email and a notification will appear on your personal dashboard. Select Play Up to Adult Individual Approval in the notifications. Read the information, check the details, and approve or reject.
And there we go. I'll just mention here that will then allow, if the player has been approved, to then be registered as a 17-year-old. We're not actually going to cover that this evening, and there's a very good reason for that, is that hasn't changed. So those of you who are familiar then to actually how to register a 17-year-old player, that is exactly the same process as what it was before. We've just introduced and brought in, if you like, into the bookends of excuse me, the widget at the start in terms of the club being approved by the CB to be able to carry on with these assessments, and the player being registered. We've essentially filled that middle with the Smartsheet processes moving into GMS. The 17-year-old registering, how to register a 17-year-old, again, has not changed, and all of the guidance to do that is on Community Rugby Help, and we will put the links into a follow-up or into the chat at some point. We'll have a break for some questions now, but Ian, just before you get stuck into the questions and some common themes coming through, I can just see a couple mentioned in there, and Mark, feel free to chip in as well. That just using the language around what happens if we're short for this, or what happens if the opposition is short for a player, and what have you. And Mark, I'm sure you'll probably want to spend a little bit of time reminding us the rationale for 17-year-olds playing adult rugby in the first place.
Yeah, so we know that that situation can arise, but as I talked about at the beginning, the requirements and risk of just pulling someone in at short notice is really challenging. You can't guarantee that you'll have all the right sorts of things in place, either for well, particularly for the individual, of course, who's not been approved yet. So you can't play anyone up into adult rugby if they've not been approved, and that's really important because the process is a detailed process and making sure that we're doing the right things to keep that player safe. So that map wouldn't be an option that you would have, and clearly you're then talking about modifying the rules, etc., and the laws for that through play on and things like that in that game.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Ian, is there any other common themes you want to spend a minute or two looking at?
Yeah, just around player assessment, Mark, just in terms of what level coach you have to be, and some people have created their own player assessment forms, that type of thing. Just people want to know, will that be standardized? But there's quite a lot of questions around the level of coach that can make the assessment.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So the regulation and the form itself talks about a level 2 or equivalent being the level of coach that should be making that assessment. Often clubs will use someone of a higher level, that which is great. And yes, also clubs do have their own have developed their own forms, etc. That's fine. To be able to provide that information to your CB if it gives additional information, but it still requires this process to be followed as well. So if you've got additional information you can send to the CB, they will welcome that because it obviously gives them more detail on which to make an assessment.
Cool. And just one question in around linked to that level 2 is if that club doesn't have a level 2 coach, what would they do in that situation?
So what we're looking for with the level 2 coach is a degree, first of all, of transparency and neutrality, because they've obviously been through the coaching program. And that we've got many examples where a neighbouring club has helped out, and one of their coaches has come over and done that sort of neutral, transparent assessment of a player. That's open to clubs, and as I say, we've seen a number of examples of that being used as well.
Nice one. Just checking through the questions. Just a bit around the approval, just around timescales with CBs, approval timescales. Is there a SLA or anything around that, around the time they have to get back by a certain time? And then the other bit linked to that is just someone's put, what is the rationale behind approval not being looked at by CBs until the 1st of October?
So so first of all, the point around the timing. So we've written into regulation this year that you can expect up to 10 days to turn around an application. And as I said earlier, that's for one to address the load on the CB volunteers, which is obviously pretty heavy, especially at this time of the early part of the season and just pre-season. And also part two, if a club is providing the level of information that's required, it does take time to work that through. So trying to make sure that the quality of the information which is expected is in the form as well, and that does take time to do a proper assessment on that as well. Overnight, some counties may be able to turn it around quicker, but we're saying up to 10 days is how long. So always, our advice would be always think 10 days ahead in terms of getting your application in, and then getting the answer back for the game or the whatever it is that you've got coming up. So a bit of planning ahead, Ian.
Nice one. Thank you. So some CBs might be set in different dates. Is that what we're saying around timescale, Mark?
Yes, so the CBs are approvers, so they may have ways and means to try and make sure that they've got the right information through and giving people the time to think about it, as well as themselves, obviously. So they may say that we're waiting to allow players to get reacquainted first of all, and obviously part of our challenge at the moment with the hard grounds is the ability to contact train is limited, so that will be potentially a reason why people might delay the approval process as well.
Cool, nice one. And just to clear up any confusion around player assessment, guys, it's level 2 coach, or it could be you're a level 3 coach, even better. Doesn't matter, level 2 and above. But as we said earlier,
Sorry.
Yep, that's cool. And then probably just last bit there is, okay, yeah. Just to clarify again, Mark, just to, if someone's been approved last year, that's quite a common question. People are wanting absolute clarity. Does it have to be done again this season?
Yeah. So yes, please is the answer to that. We need to get it into the GMS system, or you won't be able to select them into an adult team, and obviously all the safeguards that are attached to their profile won't be in there. What we're trying to do is we're trying to find a way that we might be able to ease the load on you on that. And one of the things that we've looked at is, rather than having to submit all the detail you submitted last year, could you put something into the box that says this was a previous approval? But we do need to get the information into GMS, because that then means the whole system will work. Your safeguarding officers will be aware, CB safeguarding managers and all the approvers will be aware and able to sign that off. And then it's there sort of for life then, isn't it? Part of the system, and that player being able to be played up on a match card into adult rugby and all those other things, that the benefits that Matt went through at the beginning. So yes, to confirm, Ian, so if they were signed off last season, they do need to be done again this season. We're trying to find a way to do that for you. So hold fire for about 48 hours and we'll be able to see if we can find a way to make that easy on everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And a couple of things I'm picking up there just before we touch on the resources and finish with a couple of bits. And do keep the questions coming in. There's so many in there. I think it's pretty clear we're not going to get through all of them this evening, but trust me, they will all be read and bucketed up into into topics that we'll certainly take away. which is a good segue into saying we've done some work here, which hopefully, as with all new processes, there's always potentially that little feeling from some people that's a slight step back to then take a couple of steps forward. We appreciate, excuse me, that some people might get to grips with it straight away from the change. Some might be doing this for the first time and haven't had the experience of doing the smart sheets. We, as with all kind of processes like this, we release into GMS, there'll be a review period. And part of that, and all of the questions that have gone into here today will be counted as feedback for that. And then when we come to do the season switch over for next season, if there are some key themes and topics coming through that the game is telling us, and the volunteers are saying, this doesn't really work, can you please consider that? Obviously, there's some safeguarding, some statutory and some regulatory things that we definitely want to keep in and work within. But where there are improvements coming in, the suggestions to the game, we will definitely always take those forward and consider those for future iterations. Just before I reshare the deck, Mark, there's a couple of questions I can see around people asking for clarity on, does this also count for training? And people are also asking, what's the situation with non-contact rugby?
Yeah, so I think I've answered a couple of these, but yeah, so any form of contact for a 17-year-old needs approval. So even if that's in training, that's fine. Non-contact doesn't. Non-contact is under the non-contact regulation, which is now specifically in regulation 15 under 15.9. So adults and children can play non-contact together, but there are some really clear things that need to be done to enable that, including risk assessment and safeguarding requirements. So any kind of contact, and that does include grab touch, rip touch, and things like that, because there is contact between players in those. And often a non-contact game on an adult training night might progress, the coach might progress that into those other parts of contact. If that's the case, any 17-year-old or child needs to come out of that. If they want to play, they need to go through the approval process. What was the other one, Matt?
That was it. There was non-contact and training. Yeah, training piece.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
training piece. Yeah, the training piece. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Just a tiny little bit more from me. So we spoke earlier about the resources that are there available for people. Again, appreciate some will be more familiar than others with these. Community Rugby Help, you will find all of the information that we're talking about tonight on there. And again, we always review things. So if there's some common themes that we have a look at in the chat that we need to tweak some of the guides, we will certainly do that. And if you haven't visited it already, and you do fancy a little bit more of Ian Renard, which I can only ever highly recommend, then do have a look at the Community Rugby digital channel, because there are some really good, excellent resources on there. Naturally, some people look at to learn to do processes from reading things. I'm very much a visual person, so I'm always going to go to YouTube. Both are available to you. Do put on the search function of Community Rugby Help, and you'll pretty much always find what you need. If for some reason it's not on there, or you have a technical issue, then if you just submit help request, which is on the top banner there, you'll be able to get the service desk to have a look at a ticket. Do keep putting the questions in, even though we've got a few minutes left. They will all be taken away and read and responded to in some way if we need to. And I'll probably just hand back to Mark to do a little bit of summing up in terms of some other events that are coming up in the near future, which may be of interest.
Thanks very much, Matt. And definitely, as Matt says, everyone, we'll take the questions we haven't answered. We've got a record of those and create an FAQ for you. There's quite some themes there, some of which we have covered, but there's definitely some outliers as well. So we'll make sure we include them, and along with the recording of this again, so you'll be able to pass that on, as Ian said at the beginning, and see that. There are a couple of other things just related to what we've talked about this evening. This Wednesday, you may not be able to make it because you've given us your time this evening, which is brilliant. Thank you very much again for that. But we are talking in a webinar this Wednesday evening on all the changes to Regulation 15 for this coming year. Again, that will be recorded and made available. So do keep an eye on Community Rugby Help and the YouTube page as well. We'll make sure that things are posted on there so you're able to see that. And that will give you much more information about, for those that are involved in age grade rugby, around the other changes as well. And then at the end of this month and going into September, those that were involved in the Regulation 15 review, and we had over 600 pieces of information and suggestions sent in. It was a really, really excellent response from many people on this call and the game at large. We will start the consultation around some of the areas that we struggled to find some consensus on from the game. And one of those actually is what we've been talking about tonight, is when age grade players play with adults. So if you're interested in that, do keep an eye out. We'll be getting the information out about that, aiming for within the week to provide information. And again, a series of webinars where we'll be looking to get input from the game, posing some questions about things like 17s playing adult rugby, differences between the boys and girls game, and schools and colleges and clubs and things like that. So there's a number of areas we're going to have a look at. So do keep an eye out for that, please, because it'd be great to hear from those of you. I know on this call, many of you wear lots of different hats, which would definitely be helpful to get your views on that as well. And that consultation will run from that point late this month in September right through to October, when we'll try and look at what we've got back and are there things that we can do differently that the game thinks we've got some consensus on as well. So please do keep an eye out for that, and we will make sure that comes out through all the usual channels, social media, clubs, and schools, colleges as well. So do keep an eye out for those.
Thanks, Mark.
I think that's us, Ian.
Yeah, we're great session. Thanks for everyone's contribution. Probably just last couple of questions that have just come in, but just to be really clear, someone's just put in, will no CB approvals be completed until 1st of October? It depends on your CB and what process they've put in. So, check with your CB, whatever CB you're from. And lastly, I've put in everything in the chat. If you go to your chat box, there is the links to the relevant articles, which have the videos that we've gone through tonight embedded into those articles straight to our YouTube channel. So you can either go straight there and get it in that format, or you can go to the YouTube channel. And I've also just popped a link for the webinars that are coming up this summer. Obviously, this regulation one taking place this Wednesday, and you can register if you would like to attend that by clicking on that link that's in the chat. Thanks for everyone's time. Again, this will be on the Community Rugby Digital YouTube channel later this week, and we will send out post follow-up webinar comms to everyone once this is up on their YouTube channel. But thanks for your attendance tonight, and it's been a great session. Thanks to the presenters, Mark, Matt, and thank you for Viv for your expert advice in the chat. Cheers.
Thanks all.